Good morning, everybody. So I'm Frederic Brönnimann, and I'm the facilitator of the thematic working group working on utility and governmental services. So for some of you, it will be the third or the fourth time you will see the presentation, but it's a new one, of course. And for some of you, it will be the first time, so I will try to be as general as possible, but if you have questions, I will go quite straight, and we can have the question later. So first, I would like to remember you what is the scope of this broad domain. So utility and governmental services, according to the directive, include utility facilities such as sewage, waste management, energy supply, so water supply, that means a whole bunch of networks, but also administrative and local governmental services such as public administration, civil protection sites, schools, hospitals. So according to a first scope, we had a lot of items and we put them together into three main groups. That's how we managed to work. And within our thematic working group, we split into three subgroups. So if you see the 10 experts we are, with the color, a third of us work on utility networks, a second third with trainees that went and gone, so we were four at the same time, worked on administrative and governmental services, and the last third worked on environmental management facilities. So I will present you the three submodels, one after all, because even if there is a global link together, this notion of public services, we decided to make three separate models which may have link from one to another. So to finalize the presentation of the group, we were 10, coming from the 8 yellow countries, among them 2 countries not within EU. We had 7 face-to-face meetings, which are the orange points, 3 conferences inspire, this one is the last one, and also 3, it's not here, but harmonization cross-thematic working groups. And we had something like 35 teleconferences, and we developed something that is not yet finalized. You will see that, but it's a model containing from 15 to 21 application schema. Don't be afraid, I will make it simple. And the data specification is quite a big document. So in French we say when something is complex, the name is a gas plant. And we are talking about gas stations and gas network, but I will try to show you it's not so complex as it looks, but it's very simple for the users. So first part of our domain is everything connected with utility networks. And we took the position to link our work with the generic network model that has been developed for hydrography and transport network. So according to the same structure, we created the utility network application schema, and then we developed 5 separate application schema, one for water, clear water, one for sewer, one for oil, gas, chemicals, another for electricity, a last one for thermal. I say 5 because these 5 are the mandatory one or the one inside the implementing rules. But in fact, we have also a question about telecommunication. So it's not mandatory because according to a decision that was held a few years ago, telecommunication is not part of the Inspire scope. But as we are working with underground networks, or it's the same principle, we decide to take telecommunication inside our scope, but only for the data specification and technical guidance, not for the implementing rules, but it's not mandatory to have telecommunication information. And we develop, you will see, a core application schema and extended application schema. So as it's based on the network model, it's very simple. It's a bunch of lines, nodes, arc, nodes, arc, nodes. The structure is simple. Within the arcs or the lines, you can have cable, pipe or duct. you have relation from one to another. Because as you can see, you can have cables which are underground, cables which are inside a pipe, cables which are only inside the duct, and pipe inside the duct. So you have several relations from these three types of line elements, but more or less they have the same properties of carrying something, carrying water, carrying electricity, and so on. So these are the line of the model, and between this line you have points which are whether appurtenances or container, like a pole for electricity or telecommunication line, or like a manhole in the ground if you have to go into the sewer network. So it's the representation for the common network, and then if you look of one single network, I wouldn't do the sixth one, but one single network, you can see that you find back these three elements. First, the electricity cable with information about the voltage, so very simple. Then the electricity appurtenance, and there is a list of values. Is that a transformator, or is that creation of energy at the beginning of the network, or just a pole inside the network? And you have also a third element, which is a little bit like you will find inside the other submodels, with the notion of authority concerning the whole network as a whole. But it's linked with utility network elements, which are part of the generic network model. So we have inside this submodel something more or less complex. On one hand, we can see that we may have 18 application schema, one for a domain, and developed whether core, that's what I presented, or extended with much more attributes, but it's not in the implementing rules, only in the data specification document for technical recommendation. But also we wanted to create a basic. That means that we just have the links and the points, but without any topology. It's just a very simple network for people not using the generic network model. So that's what we proposed, but we were told first that extension is not part of the implementing rules, so we take it away. Then telecommunication, as I said, is not a question of Inspire, so we can propose it as recommendation, but it's not mandatory. And then there is a big question, do we keep basic and core, or do we have only one of them? And it's up to decide right now. So it means that from 18 we go back to maybe only 5 if we consider the core, or 12 if we consider core and extension. But in fact, the users are not working in electricity and water and pipelines, for example. You will have a pipeline company, or you will have a municipality dealing with electricity, but it's not the same person who are doing everything at the same time. So if you look at the user point of view, it's just taking one line, if you want to take a domain like water, and you choose if you want to have basic, core, or extension model. So from the user point of view, it's not so complex. Second subdomain is the governmental services. Here we made only one feature type for everybody, which is the governmental services feature type. In the core vision, it's only a location. So location can be whether one of 5 options within a union. It can be located by an address, by a building, by an activity complex. We will see what it is, but it's a facility or industrial complex. By its own geometry, it can be an object. Most of the time it's a point, like a point of interest you have on your GPS navigator. Or it can be also a utility node, one node of the former network I presented. For example, if you have a water network, you can have one appurtenance, which is an hydrant for the firemen. And this hydrant is a public service as itself, because if there is a fire, you may need this hydrant. So you have information for this hydrant as a governmental service, but this hydrant can be also a part of a utility network. So these are the 5 locations, and also you have other information like the responsibility, the contact, and you have a big code list. I will detail it later, but of value, what type of service it is. Is it an hospital? Is it a school? Is it a university? Is it a fire hydrant? Is it whatever? So we have a list of type of governmental services, but except from this list, they have the same properties like responsible party, contact, or location. And if we go down to the extension, we have some more information, the name, some textual information, the information about occupancy or resource description. So this is quite open. It's just a measure and a unit, because we couldn't find, if you want to talk, for example, about a school, what is the occupancy of a school? Is it the number of pupils? Is it the number of teachers? Is it the number of classrooms or chairs? You don't know. So it's up to any database to provide its own information. It will be difficult to have a real interoperability for that, but on the other hand, everybody can stock his information inside that format. And other informations are within this governmental service. We had a main issue the last weeks about the comments we received. As I will show you, we had something like 200 value type for services, and it was too much. So we considered to reduce the scope by only taking the straight understanding of the directive. So that means what is written in the directive, as I said, hospital and schools, but also what is of the same level, kindergarten, universities, and other derived information linked to environment. But, for example, we don't provide information about culture or sport, because it's not really within the core scope of Inspire as we understand it. And we don't make the difference between public actors and private actors, because it depends on some states or some places, and the private institution can provide public services, whatever, on behalf of a mandate. So, as I said, the governmental service types reduced from 200 to 56 for the time being, but there is still a question about that. Is it too limited or is it too wide? It depends on position. And we have also a question about extensibility. We prefer to have a narrower extensibility because it will keep the interoperability, but some people want to have any extendibility, and that can be a mess. So there will be an arbitration, maybe from the GRC, or it can be at any level, like comitology, or I don't know, but it's not us experts to decide and to answer this question. The last submodel, and I will go very fast for it because you will see it again with production and industrial facility with Andrea, is based on the activity complex model. So an activity complex is like an industrial point. For us, it's dedicated to waste management, solid waste or wastewater, but it can be for other activities like Andreas will show you, or like France for agriculture activities. We developed the model all together within these 3 thematic working groups. And the model also is very simple. It's just one feature type, the environmental management facility, which is inheriting a lot of properties from this activity complex. And you have also data types describing this, derived from activity complex extension, and related party. Related party is something we proposed to indicate which is the authority and which is the mandate. It couldn't possible to use ISO 1995 115 for that, so we decided to create something special, and it's proposed in the generic conceptual model and also reference to code list we created or external code list that already exist, like NACE code list or waste standards for the waste part. So we are happy that with such a wide scope of thematic, it's difficult, but we made something. We think that we made the challenge. We have produced 3 models. Maybe they are not so simple as I tell you, but it's not so complex as you can think. And the good advantage is that that can be used from a European level to a local authority level, because even if the smallest authority level is not mandatory for Inspire, we think that utility and governmental services are very important for them, and they are the prior actors to deliver such information. So we have questions about the data quality. We will see after implementation if the data quality will be consistent or if there will be big gaps. That will be the surprise. We have a long document, as I told you, and we wonder if we can split into 3 separate parts, because it's not dealing with exactly the same thing, but it was the way the directive was made. And we still may have questions about the number and the size of the code list for service type values of governmental services. And about the organization of application schema, we have several scenarios, and we will see which one will be taken into account in the few days to come, because there may be a little too much. Thank you very much.